Sit back and throw one back with your pinky in the air and a middle finger to the world, and join me, the eclectic gentleman Stephen Watts, as we look back on this day in pro wrestling history. But before we do, put that drink down, like, share, and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get our wrestling history on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is December 26th, and we're going to start off as we always do on a positive note. That's right, these are your pro wrestling birthdays. 1962, journeyman wrestler Mark Starr. 1968, best known as Phineas Godwin, Dennis Knight. And last but not least, 1983, England's own J.D. Knight. Of course, on the flip side of that coin, your pro wrestling deaths for December 26th. 1963, the heel that changed it all, Gorgeous George. 2003, one of them Fargo boys, Danny Fargo. Alright, enough of the sad stuff. It's time to get to the meat and potatoes. That's right, these are your pro wrestling history highlights for December 26th. Jumping in the Wayback Machine and going all the way to 1957, where we see Verne Gagne and Bronco Nagurski defeat the Atomic Blondes in Minneapolis, Minnesota to win the Minneapolis version of the NWA World Tag Team titles. Groovin' to 1963, Jackie Fargo and Mario Milano defeat Tojo Yamamoto and Ivan Mekhlinoff in Chattanooga, Tennessee for the Mid-American version of the NWA Southern Tag Team titles. 3 years later in 1966, Dominic DeNucci and Don Leo Jonathan defeat Don Jardine and Dutch Savage for the Vancouver version of the NWA World Tag Team titles in Vancouver, British Columbia. Our final stop in the groovy 60s, 1969. King Curtis Iukea and Buddy Austin defeat Mario Milano and Spyros Aaron in Sydney, Australia to win the International Wrestling Alliance Tag Team titles. Grabbing my bell-bottoms and going to the year 1970. Moose Choluk and Wilbur Snyder win their second World Wrestling Association World Tag Team titles in Indianapolis, Indiana by defeating the Fabulous Kangaroos, Al Castello and Don Kent. Disco ducking it 3 years to 1973. Gene and Ole Anderson defeat Brute Bernard and Jay York to win the NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team titles in Columbia, South Carolina. That next year in 1974, Paul Jones defeats Ivan Koloff for the NWA Mid-American Television title in Greensboro, North Carolina, ending Koloff's second reign and beginning his own second. Making 3 stops in 1976, first, Ric Flair and Greg Valentine defeat Gene and Ole Anderson to win the Mid-Atlantic version of the NWA Tag Team titles in Greensboro, North Carolina, ending the Andersons' fourth reign. Our second stop in 76 sees The Sheik win the Toronto version of the NWA United States Heavyweight title for a third time, defeating Thunderbolt Patterson in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. In our third and final stop in 76, Bill Dundee and Ricky Gibson defeat Dennis Condrey and Phil Hickerson to win the NWA Mid-American Tag Team titles in Chattanooga, Tennessee. That next year, in 1977, a live event at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee drew over 5,000 fans, headlined by Bill Dundee doing double duty by winning a 16-man battle royal and then defeating the Mongolian Stomper to win the Southeastern Heavyweight Championship. Making 3 stops in 1981, Eric Embry wins a tournament final in St. Petersburg, Florida to win the vacant Florida television title. Our second stop sees Bugsy McGraw defeat the Great Kabuki in a fictitious match for the NWA American Heavyweight title in Columbus, Ohio. In our third and final stop in 1981, David Von Erich defeats Jack Briscoe in St. Petersburg, Florida for the NWA Florida Southern Heavyweight title, ending Briscoe's fourth reign. That next year in 1982, after 14 years in operation, NWA Hollywood Wrestling, also known through the years as North American Wrestling Alliance and World Wrestling Association, closes. It was run by Gene and Mike LaBelle. NWA Hollywood Wrestling had a working relationship with both New Japan Pro Wrestling and the Japanese Wrestling Association, All Japan Pro Wrestling, during which time NWA United National Heavyweight title, now part of the All Japan Triple Crown, was created. 1983, in front of nearly 25,000 fans in Madison Square Garden, the Iron Sheik defeated Bob Backlund to win the WWF World Heavyweight title when Backlund's manager Arnold Skaaland threw in the towel as Backlund was trapped in the camel clutch. Staying in 1983, Randy Savage wins his second NWA Mid-American Heavyweight title, defeating Terry Taylor in Memphis, Tennessee. 2 years later in 1985, Ted DiBiase and Steve Williams defeat Eddie Gilbert and Dick Murdoch, replacing the Nightmare, to win the Mid-South Tag Team titles in Biloxi, Mississippi, beginning their second reign. They would be the last to hold the titles before Mid-South Wrestling became the Universal Wrestling Federation in 1986. Fast forwarding to 1988, Starrcade, nicknamed True Grit, is held at the Scope in Norfolk, Virginia. This is the first Starrcade not to be held on Thanksgiving, as the WWF had successfully bumped them out of the spot with Survivor Series. The main event sees NWA World Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair defeat challenger Lex Luger. Grabbing my flannel and going to the decade of grunge, 1993. Eastern Championship Wrestling held their first ever Holiday Hell event at the ECW Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with a main event of Terry Funk pinning ECW Heavyweight and Television Champion Sabu in a no disqualification match to win the Heavyweight title for the first time. That next year in 1994, the USWA Tag Team titles change hands twice in Memphis, Tennessee. First, Beauty and the Beast, Jim and Ron Harris defeat the Moondogs, Rex and Spot, ending their second reign. Immediately after, PG-13, JC Ice and Wolfie D defeated Beauty and the Beast to begin their fourth reign. Those were your short but sweet pro wrestling history highlights for December 26th. I'm the Eclectic Gentleman Stephen Watts, and we'll see you tomorrow.